This is first with yourself, awal walidain, or your parents, wal aqrabin, and those who are close to you. Verse 8 of Surah Al-Ma'idah makes it very clear that this verse 135 of Surah Al-Nisa, that it doesn't mean that, okay, well, I'll just establish justice with myself and my close relatives and my friends, and then everybody else, we leave them. Or people who are like-minded. Someone may misinterpret that and try to make that statement. So this is why I go to verse 8 of Surah Al-Ma'idah. And in fact, especially for my youth and everyone, write that verse down. Verse 8 of Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5 of the Quran, verse 8. Why so? Because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, particularly in this verse, when He talks about justice and establishing justice, to what extent He talks about establishing justice. And I'll explain this in a second. First, let's go to what is that thing which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in verse 8 that diverts people from justice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He states that in this verse, He says that Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kunu qawwamina lillah shuhada'a bil qist. He says, be those who establishes yourself for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, shuhada'a bil qist, those who bear witness for the sake of justice. He says, وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمًا عَلَىٰ أَلَّا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله بما تعملون خبير. He says that don't allow the hatred for a people or someone who doesn't think like you or doesn't believe like you, someone who is different from you. لا يجرمنكم شنآن قوما على ألا تعدلوا. صلى
محمد علي محمد بلندر سلام. اللهم صل على محمد وعلي محمد.
So, on one hand, in verse 135, it says, your low desire, your interest, self-interest will keep you from being just. In verse 8 of Surah Al-Ma'idah, He says, your dislike of a people will also keep you from establishing justice. But the question is, who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking about in this particular verse? Shana'anu qawmin. Which qawm? When you refer back to the commentary of the Quran and also the event that is going on there, is speaking about the mushrikeen, the polytheists, people who don't even accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people who associate and ascribe a partner to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's telling the Prophet this, that again, some of the people who are your followers who claim La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, because of what has happened to this point and the engagement with the believers, with the mushrikeen, who has given them so much trouble, so much hassle, even after making peace with the Muslims and then breaking that treaty and making it difficult for them to go to Hajj, even after they established, yes, you come in for Hajj, but yet still, while the Muslims were coming for Hajj, they were still agitating them. So the Prophet said that even those individuals who are doing this, and that people may have some sort of feeling, some sort of hatred, some sort of dislike for those individuals, shana'an qawman. He says, you may have dislike for those individuals. Definitely you don't agree eye to eye with regards to ideology. He says, even that. لا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that even the mushrik, even the person who doesn't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way he should believe, has rights.
Allah.
And Allah is saying, and observe their rights. If they do something to you only observe their rights. Yes, if they've done something that requires a punishment by law, then you do that. You only apply that. But you don't transgress more than that. And this is why I'm saying, why write this verse down? Why remember this verse? Because as we speak today, as we talk, a lot of people, unfortunately, they don't have the right perception of Islam. Because of some maniacs who are claiming, oh, we're going to establish an Islamic state. But if you look at their actions, 100% going against the Quran. 100% going against this verse. So if someone says that, well, that's what Islam says, you say, look, verse 1, verse 8 of Surah Al-Ma'idah shows that what they're doing is forbidden in Islam. That even the mushrik has rights. And this is exactly what this verse is about. Again, you go to any tafsir of the Quran, Sunni or Shia, Alama Tabatabai, his tafsir, or among the Sunnis you go to Baydawi, Tantawi, Fi Dhilal al-Quran. You go to any of them, they say that this verse was about the mushrikeen, that telling the Prophet that even the mushrikeen who don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who haven't accepted the message of Rasulullah, that when you interact with them, observe their rights. Don't transgress their rights. And moreover, in these commentaries, when you look at it, there's an ibarah, there's a statement. It says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's saying this about the mushrikeen. And then afterwards, Tantawi says this, Baylawi says this, our scholars also, he said, فَمَا بَالُكَ بِأَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that to this extent justice must be established, that even a person who hasn't accepted Islam, who doesn't even accept the Prophet, who doesn't accept the message of Tawheed, that if they have rights, and those rights should be observed, and justice should be established among them, so what about the people who are of Ahlul Kitab, who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So when we ask this question, that these individuals who are trying to say that they're establishing a state of Islam, when they're raiding the villages of Christians, killing Christian, taking the Christian women, and doing also, na'udhu billah, very bad things with them, and then returning them back to their village, killed, dead. Or they're doing it with other Muslims as well. As these commentators says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's saying to this extent that the mushrik has rights. And they say that, so what about the Ahlul Kitab? Or even what about the Muslims themselves who say La ilaha illallah? So if someone tries to say that, well, look at Islam, that's not an example of Islam. Verse 8 of Surah Al-Ma'idah, remember it, that this proves that what is going on has nothing to do with Islam. Because on one hand, are they looking out for their self-interest? If so, they're not establishing justice. Or if they have hatred for a group of people, let's say even 5. If they even have hatred for someone who says La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, they have hatred for those individuals who follow the AhlulBayt, who give the third shahada, Ashhadu anna Aliyyun waliyullah. Even if you have hatred for them, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that those individuals that you have hatred for, even they have rights. And you have to observe those rights. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He emphasizes, He says, bear witness to what is right, what is just. Don't allow your dislike for a people to make you transgress and go against justice. Then He says again, i'dilu. He says, make sure that you're establishing justice. Make sure that you're establishing. Why? Because establishing justice is closer to taqwa, closer to consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِنَّمَا أَكْرَمْكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. And only those who are the most conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the ones who are most close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَاتَّقُوا. And be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why we see, again, going back to the example of AhlulBayt, going back to the example of Amir al-Mu'mineen, that you'll see that in his administration, not once did he apply anything based on self-interest or dislike for anyone. One of the examples is, again, we know the history. One of the examples is that, of course, Muawiyah was giving Amir al-Mu'mineen a hard time. Of course, wars were started by Muawiyah against Amir al-Mu'mineen. A group of individuals, they came to Amir al-Mu'mineen and said, well, the politics and the way they're going on, the way Muawiyah, he's carrying the politics, they said that they actually, Amir al-Mu'mineen, or actually some were trying to give advice to Amir al-Mu'mineen. They said, they said that he is Sayyas. Sayyas means this guy is a very shrewd politician. Sayyas. So that they're very calculating their politics and their policies and what they're doing. So the answer to Mu'mineen says, why don't you give some money? Give some money and smooth things over between Muawiyah, between the governance in Damascus and yourself. So smooth things over. If you give some money, give some extra favor. Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam said he became upset. He says, what? You want me to give money? He says, he says, Allah. He swear by Allah. He says, I swear by Allah that even if it was my own money, he says, I wouldn't give to anyone unjustly. He says, if you want me to take money and to give favor to a certain group of people over another group of people, he says, if this happens, he says, if a proportion of money goes to one group of people, he says, the rights of others will be trampled.
Subhanallah, subhanallah.
He says, and I swear that even if it was my own money that I was distributing, he says, I would only distribute it with justice. And he says, and so what do you think about Baytul Mal? This is the money of Allah. If I wouldn't give my own money based on injustice, why would I give the money of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala based on injustice?
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad balantar salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So he said, I wouldn't even do that. Because if that happened, politics based on self-interest, it tramples the rights of those who are actually in need. This is one example from the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen. There are many examples. But again, that example, it remains. It stays. And this is why, again, you and I, we need to be the voice of justice. Those individuals whose rights are being trampled, we have the example of Amir al-Mu'mineen. We claim that we are the followers of Amir al-Mu'mineen and the AhlulBayt alayhim afdal salatu wasalam. When were they silent in face of injustice? It's our duty, it's our responsibility. Bear witness for the sake of justice. Kunu qawamina lillah. Live your life by the principles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught you. Shuhada bil qist. And bear witness and testify for the sake of justice. And remember, we stated that when you bear witness, If you go to court, you're shahidun la, you're bearing witness for the sake of someone or for the sake of something, in this case justice, wa shahidun alay or ala, and bearing witness against something. So you bear witness for the sake of justice and against injustice. It's your duty, it's your responsibility. Someone is getting cheated. You have to bear witness. You see it happen? No. Well, this person isn't right. Someone is driving on the road, someone hits them and tries to run off. You see it? Bear witness for the sake of what is right and what is true. Oh, this person hit and run? It's your duty, it's your responsibility in order to establish justice. The poor guy who was chased down, who was shot by a cop, if that individual had not turned that video in, then justice would not have been established. It's your responsibility. When you see these things, bear witness for the sake of what is right.